I'm Algenon Cash, and you're locked in. Welcome back to the program. We've got a friend of the show who has locked in many, many times. We want to welcome back North Carolina Treasurer Dale Folwell to lock in with us. Treasurer, how are you today? Thank you for locking in.
I'm doing fantastic, and thanks for letting me join your listeners. And especially in today's world, it's so important to inform people, not just affirm what they might already think, and that's what your show does.
Thank you. Thank you. I do try to pride myself on creating conversations where people can learn more about what's happening in
Right.
their backyard and the state that they call home. And, Treasurer, the last time you were on the show, you were actually a candidate for North Carolina governor. Unfortunately, and I'm a longtime fan and friend of yours. Unfortunately, your bid didn't quite make it. But considering some of the recent news that and controversies that we've just learned about Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, I have to ask, what's your take on this current scandal and the chance of Republicans keeping the being in the governor's mansion after November?
Well, I want to be clear with your listeners that this is my last few months as the keeper of the public purse, and my total focus is on finishing strong, doing the right things, and trying not to say the wrong things. Uh, in terms of the governor's race, we have selections now in Republican primaries, not elections. We have powerful people that select who they want the candidate to be in the Republican primary, and then that's typically who gets elected. And that did not go in my direction. And as I've said many times, what I was describing to the people in North Carolina is hope, not hate, rage, not courage. I mean, courage, but not rage. And trying to talk about things that I think have been a part of the Republican Party for 50 years, which is uh, conservatism, common sense, courtesy, humanity, humility, and ethics. And as we can see with the news that came out recently, the nominee has none of those things. And I've said that for the last 2 years.
Treasurer, I mean, it's always hard to sort of look back. I mean, you can always be a great quarterback on Monday better than you can on Sunday. Looking back over your primary race, taking consideration some of the things that we've just now learned in the last 4 or 5 days, would you have done anything different? Would you have ran the campaign any differently than you did?
Well, sure, but the the challenge is based on the Quaker blood that runs through me and the work ethic that was instilled in me and so many businesses in Forsyth County since I was 10 years old: the Winston-Salem Journal, Cloverdale Shell, Piece of Good Shops, Mayberry's, Forsyth Garbage Service, Coca-Cola Bottling Company, and the like. Uh, I feel like that, my ability just to step out of the treasurer's office and campaign full time is not something I thought the voters had hired me to do to start with.
Mhm.
So, managing one of the largest pools of public money in the world, $250 billion, 8 times the size of the state budget, where Algenon, we are spending just in the pension benefits, $7 billion, that's $1 billion a year in gross benefits, just out of the pension plan. And the reason I'm saying that to you is not to draw attention to myself, but I think that before somebody can ask for a job promotion, they need to make sure they're doing the job, showing up for the job they currently have. And I've always taken that very seriously.
I've been reading a lot of reports the last 4 or 5 days as some of this news has come out, and for my listeners, I mean, this is not just news here in North Carolina. I mean, this has become a national news story because of the lieutenant governor's tie to the current Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. I know Donald Trump was in North Carolina this past weekend, holding rallies, never mentioned the lieutenant governor's name at all. Some believe that this situation may get worse. That there might be more news, more controversy, more scandal that could come out over the next few weeks. Treasurer, my last question for you on this issue, then I want to shift our attention somewhere else. I'm starting to see a lot of calls for people saying to write your name in. What's your response to that? I mean, to the person that might be thinking about putting together a write-in campaign for Treasurer Falwell.
Well, I can't, shouldn't, and talk about that too much on this Zoom, on this program, but I still have the energy of a teenager. And I said that to a group recently, and this lady came up to me and said, my teenager doesn't have any energy at all. So we're talking old school teenagers. Uh, and I love fixing, I love saving, period. That's all I've ever done in public service. Fix and save, and being able to explain conservatism in a way that doesn't offend people. So, that's for Michael Watley, Phil Berger and Tim Moore, and President Trump to decide what's going to happen now.
Well, as always, Treasurer, you are humble and very modest with your words, and that's one reason that why I've grown to be attracted to you over the many years since I first met you, going back to the Piedmont Club days. I do want to make it clear for my audience, I am registered Republican. I will not be supporting Mark Robinson in November. I cannot bring myself to do so. I really couldn't even bring myself to do so prior to some of the scandal and salacious comments that we've heard in the last 4 or 5 days. And I certainly cannot do so now. And I do understand for many members of my party that may put me on the outside. I welcome that. But however, I do believe that leadership matters. And when you ask for the public to vote for you, no matter what office that may be, whether it's mayor, lieutenant governor, treasurer, president, whatever role, you are taking on the public trust, and that does require for you to be a strong leader. And I don't see Mark Robinson as a strong leader. Treasurer, when you made the decision to run for governor, you knew that you couldn't run for governor and run for your same office at the same time. So you also knew that if you didn't make it to the primary, that this could be virtual retirement for you. What does that feel like, sort of going into the last few months of what could be your political life? How are you reflecting on that?
Well, especially last week when I had a roundtable discussion, national discussion with Senator Bernie Sanders one day, and then have all this news hit on CNN the next day. You can imagine just how volatile my life is. But I would say that my answer to you is biblical. The book of Mark talks about getting out of the boat, and I think that's what we do. If you think that you're the better person for any position, whether it's in the private sector or in the political sector, you've got to get out of the boat, and you've got to trust. And that's what I did, and I have no regrets about that, even if this latest news had not hit, because as I've said repeatedly, I think this is the last opportunity in my lifetime for a Republican to be a governor of North Carolina.
Hmm. Have you reflected on or thought about at all what might be next for you, Treasurer? I mean, we certainly would still need your service here in North Carolina.
Well, I want God to be happy with me. I want my family and friends to be happy with me, and I want my motorcycles to be happy with me. And so there's a lot of fixing and a lot of saving that needs to go on just in those three categories. But I am very appreciative of the voters of Forsyth County who gave me this platform to start with as a school board member and as a member of the House of Representatives. And so my heart will always be in Winston-Salem, and now my body will be more in Winston-Salem.
When I think about some of your service over the years, and then even in some of these conversations we've had this year, earlier in the year when you were on the campaign trail, and you've had some really tough words for the Republican Party. I mean, you're a longtime Republican. At one point, when you were in the House, when you were in the North Carolina House, you were known as one of the most conservative members of the House here in North Carolina. Would you ever consider getting involved with party leadership? I mean, would you try to maybe help get the party back to some sense of normalcy here?
Well, my heart, my mind, and my door would always be open to assist anybody who would do that. I'm not sure that that's the jersey that I need to wear. And I would also say that the reason is that I think no matter how any of your listeners feel about any particular topic, that there's something conservative about every listener that you have. They may turn their water down when they brush their teeth. They may even cut that toothpaste tube in two to in order to get that last little dropout. And I just have fun just doing what I put on my job application, because I think, generally speaking, the majority of people in the state are conservative. So this is not something I'm anxious about. I'm not fretting about it. I'm not worried about it. I'm looking forward to getting home. And what I miss most is the hardworking state employees who keep us and have kept us in the check delivery business during some of the most volatile periods of the modern era. So you just, it will give you goosebumps. And, Algenon, I'm not a doctor. My initials are D.R. Folwell. It gets me one period away from being called a doctor. But I do know that a goosebump is something you can't control. It just happens. And I just get goosebumps when I think about the work that the people at the Treasurer's office do to keep us in the check delivery business. Because no one calls us to book a cruise. They call us because they've had a life-changing event. They've gotten married. They've gotten divorced. They've lost a spouse. They've had children. Children need to go on the state health plan. Those children age out. And unfortunately, the worst ones are those public servants who were killed in the line of duty, which could be first responders, law enforcement officers, or DOT workers. So I'm really going to miss those individual people at the state treasurer's office who help us turn down the temperature for these people who are facing so much anxiety about these life-changing events and getting them the help they need. I'm going to miss those state employees.
I can tell, anytime we have a conversation, you've been very honored to be in the position that you're in. You're very proud of the policy legacy that I think you're leaving at the Treasurer's office. And I can also tell that you're very happy and content with the state of economic affairs here in North Carolina and where you are leaving the state. For my listeners that don't know much about how transition works, as you get ready to transition out of your role and someone's coming in, whoever wins in November, what does that process look like? What is the advice that you plan to give your successor?
I know that people listen to sometimes all and sometimes segments of the show, and I hope this is the part they key in on. The two examples that I want to give your listeners of true public servants are Howard Coble, who you knew very well, who, my understanding, refused his Social Security check while he was in Congress because he didn't think his government should pay him twice. That's public service. The second is former Treasurer Harlan Bowles, who would go and meet, let me say this clearly, would go and meet with the Republican state party chair. Treasurer Bowles was a Democrat, lifelong Democrat, and tell the Republican state party chair this job is too important to hand over to just anyone. I want you to find the best possible person to run against me, because anything can happen in a presidential election. I'm going to beat them, but we need the best possible people as the keeper of North Carolina's public purse. So what I've done is, for the last 3 months, every board meeting that I've chaired, I've invited both candidates to these meetings. As soon as the voters determine who's going to be the next treasurer of North Carolina, this person will be invited to sit next to me in every meeting between that day and the end of the year. So I've been in the Quaker terminology, I've treated them with the R of grace, which stands for radical hospitality.
Mm. No, I think that's extremely powerful. And of course, I guess you'll make yourself available for questions and consult even, after that transition is complete. But
Sure.
Treasurer, this might be one of the last times we have you on the show for a little while. Considering you're going into retirement and maybe slowing down a little bit. Of course, you're always welcome to lock in here at WTOB. So you always have a place here to share your ideas or thoughts or reach out to our audience. But as I get ready to wrap up with you, I want to recenter on North Carolina as a state. As we go through this transition, we're seeing a changing of the guard in the governor's office, and we're going to see a changing of the guard within the state cabinet. What are some long-term goals that North Carolinians need to be focused on as we continue to move forward?
How to protect our economy, our neighborhood, and our citizenry from the ineptness of the federal government, who cannot protect our borders or curb their addiction for debt. And it's funny how God made our hand. Anytime you point a finger at someone, there are three more pointing back at you. Both political parties are responsible for this. And secondly, we will have an energy crisis in the state based on the amount of growth that's going on. We have to be focused on getting low-cost natural gas to Eastern North Carolina, which would liberate, the root word of liberal, liberate, set economically free. It would liberate Eastern North Carolina to have access to low-cost natural gas. Those are just a couple of the big items.
Well, I appreciate you sharing those ideas with us, Treasurer. You have ran an incredible race, and I've been honored to be able to watch you run it. And I'd say congratulations and well ran. I would also add that as well. Do you
Thank
have
you.
any closing remarks for our audience as we get ready to
Yeah,
go here?
people can learn more about this roundtable we did with Senator Bernie Sanders. We have a drug tax in this state, in this country, a drug tax. When this weight loss drug costs $1,300 in this state, and $90 in England, and $200 in Denmark, it's a drug tax. What it is. They can learn more about that at nctreasurer.com, and please sure to go to nccash.com. Just another valuable reason, in addition to the great music, to listen to your show and WTOB. nccash.com. I went to buy an auto part a few weeks ago. The guy that sold me the auto part had $3,000 sitting at nccash.com.
Wow.
I went to visit an employee the other day at Rex Hospital. The nurse thought it was kind of a little bit of a hoax. She had $354.06 sitting in nccash.com. So all of your listeners need to continue to go to nccash.com, look up their name, maiden, kids, parents, PTA, Little League, church. Just punch in cash as the last name. You'll be shocked what you'll find.
You have been so consistent about trying to return money back to the citizens of North Carolina since you've been in that office. Real quick, how much money have you returned to citizens through nccash.com?
Almost $750 million.
Wow. Wow. That's impressive. I know every time you come on the show, you've been very consistent about mentioning that. I do encourage my audience to take your advice on that. As always, Treasurer, thank you for locking in. Thank you for sharing ideas and thoughts with us today and just helping us stay educated and connected. To my audience, as always, thank you for locking in. Make sure you stay tuned to WTOB because every Sunday morning you can lock in there. But if you happen to miss me there, go check out the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you like to get your favorite podcasts. You can lock in with me there. And as always, until next time, y'all stay locked in.